Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV. You're with Amanda Hall Psychic all the way from the Gold Coast here in Australia. I hope wherever you are in this amazing globe of ours that you've had a really interesting and positive and upbeat week for a change. It's sort of time, I think, that we sort of rev things up a little bit and start to put some positivity and some love back out into the world. I know here in Australia we're sort of in election season with elections going on all around the country, not a federal one, but, you know, they're just happening in the state and everywhere else. And I know there's other parts of the world that are in the grips of election fever too. And it gets a little bit monotonous after a while. I think you sort of tune out. You sort of think, oh, same old tired faces getting out there beating the drum, telling you how blasted important they are and how much they're going to improve things. And then, you know, they get in and nothing changes much. So, you know, I think we can all become a little bit numb to things, as we've all become a little bit numb to the pandemic around the world too. We sort of all believe it would be over by now. And we just sort of feel that, look, if we could just turn the hands back to time and go back to a simpler time when life was normal, as we used to know it, where we could get out of bed and plan our day and go where we pleased and do what we pleased. And I suppose probably we were whinging and whining then too about something being wrong with our world, but it's been a very different 2020, has it not? I mean, from the beginning of the year where we all set our intentions and our New Year's resolutions at what we were going to achieve for this year, and then all of a sudden the world was gripped by a pandemic. And these sort of things are sent to try us, I think. I think it sort of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think that's a very old saying that's been around for a very, very long time, longer than me. And I think it's probably very true because a lot of us have found strength this year in ways and means that we didn't know that we owned. And we found them, in a lot of cases, the more important things in life, like, you know, feeling well, getting up and having something to look forward to, missing time with our family and our friends and our loved ones, and looking forward to those days when we can get together in person for real and hug each other and all the things that we took for granted before. So I think it's been a very eye-opening year this year. And, you know, it's certainly not over yet, and the pandemic's a long way from being over. And I don't know in which way will we declare it being over. Will that be when the world gets a vaccine or two that, you know, people that want to be vaccinated can be? Will it be when we eradicate this and sort of say it's in the rear vision mirror, or is it a combination of a lot of things? I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't mean to sound negative, but I don't know that there's one answer that's going to be the closure to all this. I think it's going to be a combination of things that's going to bring it to a close, that we can all then safely sort of say, well, that once in 100-year pandemic is now behind us. But in the meantime, for all the rest of us mere mortals, we have to live through this experience and gain as much wisdom and insight as we possibly can. So that leads me to the Simply Tarot card of the week this week, which is the Star. Now, this is one of my favourite cards. And when we were designing this set many, many moons ago now, it seems like a very long time ago, it was one of the cards that kept coming up as we were working on it in my office. And I can remember one particular meeting we were having about discussing the whys and wherefores of the Simply Tarot deck. And this card kept falling on the floor. And I remember thinking at the meeting, well, okay, there's got to be a hidden message in this for all of us. It is the Star card. It's the card of brightness and hope. It could bring excesses. Now, isn't that an interesting thing? So don't become too greedy. Now, I think a lot of times in our lives, I think we get so carried away with what we want to achieve and what we're bringing into our lives that we forget that sometimes we can be asking for too much. So if you've got excess, share it. Don't become greedy. Don't hold on to it. Don't be like the woman in this card where she's tipping the water out onto the ground and into the pond because she has an abundance or she has an excess of water. So just look at what you might have that's a little bit in excess in your life and make sure that you're not becoming too greedy. If you have something extra, share it on, pay it forward. Give it to someone else. There may just be somebody else that could do with what you no longer require or you no longer need or you feel you have too much of. So I think that's the message here this week, that I think that we can all look around our house and our home and see if there's something that we've got in excess that maybe we could pay forward, that could be donated or given to somebody or bring somebody else some joy. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? To bring someone else some joy, which in turn will bring us joy and bring us better fortune. So that leads me on to the candle of the week. And this week I've chosen probably what you were going to say is an abstract candle for these times, but I wanted to sort of talk to you about these all different types of relationships that we have in our world. And they're not always about love and romance. They're not always about family. They're not always about friendship, but they can be about soulmates. Now, soulmates is one of those tricky areas because a lot of people tend to sort of think of, oh my goodness, I need to find my soulmate. That's going to be my mate in life. Once I've found my soulmate, everything's going to be amazing. Everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be as I want it to be. But soulmates can come in many different forms and shapes. They don't always come in as the love of our life or the person that we're meant to spend the rest of our lives with. A soulmate is somebody that we connect with on a soul level, not necessarily on a physical or a sexual level. It's on a soul level. So therefore, we can have many soulmates during our life. We don't just have the one we fall in love with. And this is where people misconstrue what soulmate actually means. So by drawing the soulmate candle out this week to talk about, it's interesting because I think many of us have many connections on a soul level that we might like to intensify. So if you have a soulmate candle, or even if you don't, you can sort of sit there and imagine, put some energy into your own candle and say, this is my soulmate candle. I want you to write down 3 things on a piece of paper that you would be looking for or would like to connect with your soulmate. Now, it may just be honesty, you know, that to be able to have such an amazing connection that the two of you are bluntly honest with each other, and that way you help each other through the trials and tribulations of life. It may just be that having someone there at the end of a telephone, particularly in these difficult times where, or at the end of, you know, some sort of video chat, that we can, you know, bare our soul to and talk about how difficult the day's been or how we're handling a different strangeness in our world. You know, some people are still in lockdown around the world and restrictions on where they can go and what they can do. And the third one might be just being there for someone else. And that's a great gift of us being able to be there for someone else. And so I think, you know, soulmates is not always about the person that we're going to spend the rest of our lives with happily ever after. It's about the people that come into our lives that are the soul of our lives, that really make a big difference. And I've, you know, been fortunate enough over the years to have met lots of different people that I suppose along the way have touched my soul in many ways. And it's an interesting sort of concept because, you know, sometimes people are only in our lives for a short period of time, or they have a particular short journey or a reason or an impact in a way that we could never begin to imagine. So that leads me on to the next little thing that I want to talk about being on a soulmate journey or someone that touches your soul. You might notice that I'm wearing these very, very beautiful puka shell earrings with little love hearts on the bottom, and they've been made by a lovely lady called Terry Cote. And Terry Cote was David Cassidy's drummer, and she has a jewellery business called Drum Jewels, and I've been fortunate enough to purchase a couple of pieces from Terry, and this is my latest part to my David Cassidy jewellery collection, I might add. And I just thought I'd give a special shout out to her because she's somebody that's come into my life in a rather unusual sort of way through another friend, and she makes this beautiful jewellery. And I came across that she made a piece for me to celebrate David's 70th birthday this year. And then, you know, we got chatting over the social media and I've bought some other pieces from her. But it's nice to see somebody that's continuing on in his legacy. You know, it's something that she's doing. She's doing special signature pieces that relate to David, and anybody that's been a huge fan of the Partridge Family and knowing it's 50 years this year since they first went to air, was puka shells was something that David wore a lot of. He found a necklace somewhere and wore it on set, and it became one of his signature pieces. So she's taken that and the love that he shared around the world. So she's touched my soul in a different way. And no, her and I would never, you know, have a physical relationship, probably never meet in person, but our souls are now intertwined in a very small way through the love of music and the person that she worked with and made such beautiful music with. So you can see how soulmate connections can take shape in our lives in many different forms. So let's get on to the astrology segment this week. And look, I'm really pleased to sort of say we've got a little bit of a shift in some of the planetary things, and I've got something different to talk about. I mean, yes, we've got the same three culprits there that are, working us through the pandemic: Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn. And I think most of you know now what I would say about that. And if you don't, go back and watch some of the previous shows. I'd like to focus on some of the faster moving planets this week. We have the moon, the emotional planet, which moves around the zodiac very, very fast and changes energies of the zodiac every 2.5 days. So that gives you an idea of how fast the moon moves. Well, the moon is actually holding hands or conjunct what's known as one of the Arabian parts in astrology called the part of fortune. Now, this is not where we're going to find the gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's where we're going to find fortune in our lives in a way that can come in many different forms and shapes. Now, the fact that it's sitting in Virgo at the moment, Virgo is the planet of physical health. It's also the planet, the energy where it's asking us to dig deep inside ourselves, to be very analytical, put our practical hat on, listen very carefully to what's being said, sift out the BS from the truth, and sort of understand what's going on in our lives. Now, for some people, that might be a little bit difficult because our emotions just seem to be all over the shop, where we've got emotions running every which way and nothing seems calm, nothing seems normal. Well, it's like, let's take a deep breath. Let's sort of exhale gently and ask ourselves, what is the most important thing that I need to be putting into my mind at the moment? And emotionally, how do I feel about it? So it's interesting because I feel that with this coming up with Virgo at the moment, we've also got the sun sitting in Virgo for the last part of his transit this year through Virgo, asking us to look very carefully at the world through a lens, like put a little bit of a barrier between you and some of the BS that's going on out there and some of the world leaders, and they're all coming out and they've all got a different opinion, and maybe go back to your own truth. And this is what Virgo enables us to do, is to sift through the BS, is to cut to the chase, is get to the truth, is to look at things in a very practical, logical, down-to-earth manner and ask ourselves, what part of science do I believe? What part of the information highway do I relate to? And if it doesn't feel right, or it doesn't sit or resonate well with you, then maybe put it to one side and look at it again at a later stage. Because now more than ever, I think we can finally find our own truth. We can cut through things. We can see what is practical, what we can apply, what we think is appropriate for us, and what we think we can do going forward as an individual that can help us manage this pandemic in our own way. And each and every one of us is managing the pandemic in our own way. For some people, that's restricting movement, of not leaving the house as often as you once would, limiting activities, not spending as much time with family and friends. And all those things can take a toll on our physical health as well as our mental health. So this is a perfect time to sort of look at, what can you do to improve your physical health? If you're somebody that has a health condition or a medical condition, then maybe what other research can you do? Is there something else that you can do? Can you increase your exercise? Can you take more rest? Can you remove the stress out of your life, improve the food that you're eating, the nutrition that you're putting into your body, to help you sort of start to function and cope with things the best you possibly can in your life at the moment? And by doing this, you're doing yourself a favor and also helping your mental health by taking care of your physical health. Now, it's something that a lot of people don't necessarily put hand in hand. If we take care of our physical health, of course, it has to have a very definite bearing on our mental health. And moving forward through all the changes that have gone on this year, I know it's been very taxing on both sides of the ledger for our health. So it's now time that we take the action ourselves and stop sitting there and feeling sorry for ourselves and saying, woe is me, I can't do this and I can't do that. Let's live in the reality of what we have here and today. And that will then improve our physical health and our mental health. And we'll find that we get some different insights, maybe some different things to focus on. Now, the other thing that jumped out at me this morning from the transit chart was Venus in Leo, which Venus is the planet of love and affection. So it's interesting how a lot of our world leaders at the moment are out strutting their stuff on the stage, beating the drum, telling you how blasted important they are, and look at me, and aren't I wonderful, and aren't I doing an amazing job, and haven't I done this, and haven't I done that? And press conferences just roll off the tongue these days. They're like media, I don't know what. You know, they're always in front of the media, a camera, looking for a photo opportunity, looking for a way to sort of get something out there. You could spend your whole day just looking at your local politicians on all their forms of media and TV and radio and newspaper and social media and everything else, and get nothing else done for the day. But it's interesting because that's actually making an uncomfortable aspect to Uranus in Taurus. So even though they think they're doing an amazing job getting out there, beating the drum and telling you how important they are, it's interesting because people that are taking a little bit of notice or see that in the background are looking at that and saying, hey, hang on a minute, that doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't feel right. Maybe you're not telling me the truth. I'm a bit sick of seeing your handsome face on the screen. You know, every time I turn it on, there you are, still rabbiting on about the same information you were talking about last week, or telling me how great things are in my world, and they're not. So people are starting to see through, I think, a lot of the BS that's happening at the moment. And that's not a bad thing. So it's interesting. I mean, if you don't want to put that on, or you don't want that in your life, then maybe do the opposite thing like I do. I always have music going in the background. I find that far more uplifting than any politician could ever be. And I think by bringing some bright, positive things into our life, then when we do have to go back and face the news or look at our favourite news program, we can do it in a much more relaxed way and sort of not feel so heavy at the end of it that, you know, you feel like you need to go and have a shower to wash off all the negativity and the grime that they've sort of, and the BS that they've spewed out, that you can sort of look at it through much more objective eyes. And it's just so interesting that all the different weather events that are happening at the moment can be equated back to Uranus in Taurus, as Mother Nature is sort of lashing back out at us. And she's telling us that she's not happy with the way that we're handling things. So here, have another dose of this. So we're going to see some quite unusual weather events. And I know all these hurricanes that are looming in the Gulf there in the USA, you know, first time in nearly 50 years they've had so many at once. And it's very interesting because this year has been such a turbulent year for most people that I feel that we're all going to come out of this pandemic a much stronger person. We're going to come out of it and maybe have some different goals, some different views, some different things that are important to all of us. And a lot of people have been inboxing me this year and sort of saying, I'm getting all these strange feelings, Amanda. What do I do about it? All of a sudden, it's like somebody switched a light switch on. And it's during these times that I feel that we do end up having so many things that can happen in our lives that we see that our intuition really sort of kicks in, that we're able to sort of see things in a much stronger way than what we were before. And for many people, for the first time in their lives, they're starting to see that life is becoming very different. Life is becoming sort of more about feelings and understanding your feelings and looking at things and saying to yourself, okay, what is it that I need to do now in my life? We're going to talk with Erica in Sullivan, Illinois. Are you there, Erica?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good. Wonderful. You have a question I can work with, please, Erica?
Do what? I'm sorry.
You have a question I can answer for you, sweetie?
I would just like to get like a love reading, possibly.
Okay. Let me tune into that for you, Erica. It's interesting. The first thing that they're showing me there, Erica, is that there's two people from your past, and I'm not saying that they're preventing love coming in, but there's two people from your past that seem to have occupied a little bit of your mind recently. And it's not so much that you want to go back there. It's just sort of like, finally, I think some of the last pieces to the reasons why those relationships ended have finally come to the surface, or you've been strong enough now to look at it, own it, let it go and say, oh, well, okay, that's where that fits in. You know, I really didn't think of it that way, or it's not really that important. But that's just sort of a marker in time to me to show me that you're now ready to progress and move on. and attract someone new in your life, somebody very different to what you've had in the past. I'm seeing romance coming in before the end of the year, and I'm going to say to you, it's going to be with a person that's got dark hair. It's not that I'm not going to say that they're not attractive and pleasing to the eye. They are, but they're very different in as much as it wouldn't have been the sort of person that you would have been attracted to a couple of years ago, but now it's sort of the right connection for you. Good-looking man, dark hair, dark eyes, fairly tall, got a cheeky sort of smile. But at the same time, I think there's a strength there. There's a strength there that there's no BS. You know, what you see is what you get. Very strong-spoken sort of man, got definite opinions about things, and it's sort of like sometimes I think you sort of stand there and you think, wow, I don't know that I'd look at it quite that way, but yeah, okay, that's your opinion. Mine's different, but that's a good thing. So I don't feel uncomfortable with this. I think it's going to be a slow and steady relationship that's going to build and become something very, very serious. And I feel it's what you need now as we move forward into your new phase of your life, Erica, and the person that you've become. So I wish you well with that, and it's going to be at an outdoor gathering that you're going to meet this gentleman. We're going to have to move along now and talk with Darcy in Palmdale in California. Are you there, Darcy?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Do you have a question I can work with, sweetheart?
No, not really a question, just maybe general overall.
Okay. All right. The first thing I'm picking up around you, Darcy, is that I feel that there's been a number of endings, changes and transformations that have taken place this year. And I'm not just talking about because of COVID. I'm talking about there was changes that were already underway in your life anyway. And it's been a time where now I think you're ready to put your best foot forward. So has there been a move of residence in the last 6 months, Darcy?
Yes.
Good. Because that was part of one of the changes or the new things that I could see coming into your life. There had to be a move of residence. There's also going to be some changes with your work or how you earn an income, but I feel that's sort of coming more towards the early part of 2021. Even if there has already been changes, there's another change coming by about March next year. It's really interesting because what I'm seeing now is you've become so super strong in yourself. You're very sort of almost scarily definite about what you want. Everything's sort of black or white. There's no shades of grey or no colour at the moment, but that's okay. We'll soon start to fill that back up again. I just want you to make sure that you're very true to yourself. If something doesn't suit you or you don't like it or you don't want it to be, then just give it the flick. You know, move it along. Make way for new and exciting opportunities that are coming into your life. It's interesting because I'm picking up an older female in spirit, and not very often do they come through to me during the course of the show because we have such a limited time. But I've got an older female here that's sort of really taking you by the hand and she's guiding you. I would probably say a great-grandmother. That's the sort of energy that she's sort of giving me, that she's sort of an authoritarian figure and she was very strong. She was very direct. She keeps saying to me that you remind her very much of her. So if there's somebody that in the family that people say, oh, you're like great-grandma was, you're so stubborn, then take that with as a compliment because that's who it is. You're really sort of, she's saying to me, you're just like a carbon copy of her. And she's so excited to be able to sort of guide you and help you. And she wants you to sort of get a little bit of a razor sharp tongue. If something doesn't suit you, then spit it out, girl. Don't sit there sort of stewing on it. Have your say and move on. She's showing me this gigantic pink heart. So I can only take from that there's new love or increased love coming into your life. So is there no one special around you at the moment, Darcy?
Yes, there is.
Well, then she's showing me this very huge pink heart. So I'm going to say there's some surprise and a good surprise attached to this pink heart. So if the two of you aren't already sort of engaged to be married or sort of setting a course for a future, then that could very well be what this lady's sharing with me. But she's just sort of saying to me it's got to be a surprise and it's beautiful and she gives you her blessing. So I know that you've got a great future ahead of you, and just acknowledge her when you know that you feel her around. Just say hello to her, whoever she may be, your grandma, your great grandma, because she just loves you to pieces, and she's just going to make sure that you have such an extra special life. And she's just so happy that you're so much like her. It's amazing. And I feel that there's going to be used as a pitter-patter of little feet before too long too, sweetie, in the next 2 years. So I hope that was part of what you were aiming for, was bringing a little one into the world.
Oh my gosh, can you repeat that, please?
I can see a baby.
Oh yes, I want a baby.
Okay, well, she's organising it for you. She's nursing the baby at the moment. She's telling me she's nearly ready to hand the baby over. My guess would be it's going to be a little girl, by the way that your great-grandma's got a big smile on her face. Anyway, Darcy, that's where we've got to leave it, sweetheart. We've come to the end of the show. So I hope you've enjoyed the show this week, and please be kind to each other. And don't forget, look around and see who your soulmate energy may be with. How many different soulmates can you have in your life, and how many people have touched your soul during your lifetime that make this world a very, 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 very special place. So until next week, bye for now.